Hello everyone. Today we will solve some problems about for loops. We will solve firstly 3 or 4 questions about basic for loops, and then we will continue with nested for loops by using multiple loops. So on the right hand side of my screen, you can see the questions, and on the left hand side, I will solve these questions by writing their codes. So let us begin with the first question. The question is named as factorial, and it wants us to write a program that takes an integer x and prints the result of x factorial. So I am first of all defining a variable x and taking its input as an integer. And then I am defining a product variable. And you will see the logic behind this. And I'm writing a for loop to make sure that the loop takes all the numbers until we reach the integer x, and it should multiply all these numbers. So for I in range starting from 1 and ending in x plus 1. So it will actually end at x. As you know, this element says that you should stop when you see x plus 1, but you should include the x variable. And then the product variable should be multiplied by I every time. So we can, for example, take 4 and it begins with 1, 1, and then we take 2. It makes 2, and then we take 3, it makes 6. It goes like that. And finally, we can print our last product value. So we can test it. I'm writing 5, and it gives me 120, and I'm writing 8, and it gives this correct output. If you have any questions, please ask right now. You can interrupt me for your questions. Okay, I'm continuing with the second question. This question wants us to write a program that takes 5 positive integers, and then it should decide which is the largest, which is the maximum number in between these 5 integers. So first of all, I can write a for loop for this in range 5. It should operate 5 times. From counting from 0 to 4, it makes 5. And then I can take an input named num, and it should be an integer. So I'm writing int input. And if this num value is bigger than something like, I should define it first of all up here, max num can be 0 first of all, and I will explain the logic behind this. If this is larger than max num, then max num should be defined as num, and at the end I should take the value of this number, max num. So first of all, we are taking the variable max num and we are equalizing it to 0, because if it sees an integer, a positive integer, then it should be directly the maximum number for until it sees another larger integer. So we are taking our input for 5 times, and if this input is larger than the maximum number, then the maximum number should be equal to this number in that loop operation, and it goes like that, and we can print the maximum number finally. So I can test it once for 8, 4, 2, 11, and 7, and it gives me 11, as you can see on the terminal. So I've written 5 different numbers, and it gave me the maximum number of all these inputs. Do you have any questions about this question? Okay, I'm going through with the third question. This question is named as hooping numbers, and it is a basic sequence question. write a program that reads three integers a, b, and t from the user, then prints the number from a to b with the increment of t, assume that b is larger than a. So as we examine the input and output examples, you can see that the given a input is 7, the given b input is 16, and the increment is 3, and it goes from 7 to 16 by the increment of 3. And on the other example, it goes from 2 to 30 with the increment of 6, but it stops at 26 because it can't reach 32 because it is larger than 30. So it should stop just like this. So for example, I can first take the a integer as an input, and then the b as an integer input, and then the increment t as an integer input, as you can see. And I am just writing a for loop for all this operation in range. So we will start from a and we will end at b, but we should write here b plus 1 because it counts until b plus 1 and including b. And there is one more operation in this range function. As you can see on my helper, the first block is named as the start element, and the b plus 1 is the second component, which represents the end component. And at last, I am writing a step component, which represents the increment or the decrease in our sequence. So in our sequence, I'd like to write t here because t is our increment in our example, and this operation should print I, and this AND operation puts a space between all these inputs, so we can collect all the data on one row. If we don't do this, it should give us 4 outputs on 4 different rows. By each row, there will be only one number. I'm running this code for example 3, and it gives me the correct output, as you can see. If we did not use this operation, it prints it just like that. As you can see, there will be 4 different lines, but I want my output on just one line. So I'm writing this AND operation with a space here, and it prints the I from this range function, this for loop, and it puts a space and then continues with the second I, and then continues to third I, blah, blah, blah. It continues like that. Do you have any questions? Okay, we can continue with the 4th question. It is our it will be our last question about these less complex for loops today. It seems like to be a long question, but it is not actually. It is really it has a really basic logical structure behind the question. You are responsible for the logistics various types of cargo. Depending on the weight of each cargo, you need a different vehicle, and this will cost a different price per ton. As you can see, there will be some limits for the minibus, truck, and train logistics, and the price per ton is changeable for all of these methods. Your task is to calculate the average price per ton of cargo, and also what percentage of the cargo is transported in each vehicle. From the console, we should take some inputs, and on the first line, we should take the count of cargo for transportation, and on the next lines, we pass the tonnage, the weight of the current cargo. And on the output, we should have 4 lines. The first line represents the average price per ton of cargo, and the second, third, and the fourth lines represent the percentage of cargo carried by minibus, truck, and train respectively. So I will be collecting my inputs just like that. It's the first line of our input should be the number of cargo, as you can see, 5, and there will be 5 more lines to take the weight of each cargo. So I am starting by defining a variable n, which represents the number of cargo here. And then I am writing a minibus weight variable, and then I'm copying it 3 times because we will have 3 cargo types, which will be respectively minibus, truck, and train, and the total weight also. Because we will need this to take the average price per ton of cargo. So we will divide the total price to the total weight of this cargo logistics system, and the total price is equal to 0 at first. These are only the initial parameters. So I will run my for loop for n times, because I will collect this data and write some conditional statements if I can make the logistics process in a minibus or a truck or a train. So I am writing for I in range n, and I will take at each step some inputs as the weight. Weight of cargo can be defined as weight, and it will be taken from the user as an integer input. So I am taking the weight as an input at each time, and if this weight is, as you can see, up to 3 tons, means less or equal to 3 tons, then it should be transported with a minibus. So I will add the weight of this cargo to the total minibus weight portion, and then I will add something to the price, which will be $200 per ton, as you can see for the minibus. So 200 times weight should be added to the total price. Else if this weight is over 11 tons, so it should be larger than 11, I should add my weight to the train weight, because it should be transported by train, and the total price should be incremented by 120 times weight, because the this price is for the train logistics. And I'm just writing an else, because this else represents the only option, which is the truck. Then I will add my weight to the truck weight, and the total price will be increased by 175 times weight. And eventually, as you can see, I should take the average price per ton of cargo, and this should be rounded up to the second digit after the decimal point. So okay. Oops, I've forgotten something here, and I should add my weight at first of all to the total weight, because I should take the weight at last, and I should decide the logistic method at last. So I am going on with the average price. So average price is calculated just like that: total price divided by total weight. and I want to take the maximum of second digits after each operation. So I am writing that. Yes. Okay. Parentheses here. So as you can see, total price divided by total weight will give a float to me, and I will take I will take this float and I will round this up to the second digit after the decimal point. And then we want the percentage of cargo carried by the minibus. So this will be a similar operation. So I'm copying this for 3 more times. But instead I am writing here, first of all, minibus weight, then the truck weight. At last I will write train weight. So as you can see, we have collected the weight data at first during the loop operation, and we added this weight value to our total weight, and we have checked some operations. If this weight is less than or equal to 3 tons, then it should be added to the minibus weight because it should be transported by a minibus, and the total price is multiplied by 200. Guys, the meeting will end in 10 minutes. I am putting a new meeting link. Just wait for a second. Okay, as you can see on the chat, I put a new meeting. After 10 minutes, we will continue by this meeting. Okay. So I'm continuing with the question, and we have added the related price to the total price, and it should go on like this on every step. So I can test my code right now. Oops, I have forgotten something. Here, the percent means that I should multiply all of them by 100. Sorry. So it gives me the percentage correctly. Okay. So we are now clear. As you can see, all of our data is correct and matches with the desired output from this input. So we can go on if you have no questions. Okay, I'm continuing. So I will solve the fifth question, and then we will continue with the second meeting. So we will write a very basic multiplication table, and it should include all the numbers from 1 to 9, and it should give us an output with a 9 to 9 square, something like that, and it should be on a format just like this. On the first row, there will be the multiplications of 1, then the 2, then 3, and it should end by a row starting with 9 and ending with 9 times 9, which is 81. So I will combine 2 for loops for this question, and this concept is named as nested for loops. So I am writing a for loop that for I in range 9. Sorry, 1 to do this like that, because if you just write 9 here, it begins with 0, so we don't want this. We want this to begin with 1 and end at 10. So it ends actually at 9. And for j in the same range means that I am collecting, for example, for the first row, the 1 as the I, and then I am continuing with the second for loop, and I am beginning from 1 and ending at 9. And if this for loop executes the whole row, the entire row, entire row, then it continues with the multiplications of 2. So the I times j should be printed on a row, just like that. Let us try. Sorry, I have forgotten something. If you want all of your data row by row, for example, I am starting with 1 here, I am going through this loop, and if this loop is completed, then it should print a blank here, and then it continues with the second row. You should not forget this. And if I rerun my code, as you can see, the correct format is here. The multiplications of 1, the products of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 are here, as you can see. I will repeat the logic behind it again, because it is a really important concept for Python programming. I am starting with 1 here, and I'm continuing with the second for loop, and it operates from 1 to 9, but I will use my I as 1 on this operation. And if the second loop is completed, then it prints a blank, and then it continues with the second row, with starting the fact that I is equal to 2, and it goes with j on an interval of 1 to 9, and it completes it, then it continues with 3, blah, blah, blah. Do you have any questions about this concept? Okay, then I am stopping my share screen, and then also the